Eugene, always great chatting to you. It's great to see that ERG Industrial turns 5 in June this year. Over the past few years, what are some of the key observations that you have seen in the market?
So, Vanessa, thank you. Firstly, also always a pleasure chatting to you. And it is birthday time, turning 5, end of June this year. I always say my son is about 6 months older than ERG Industrial. So I always have that comparison to do. So some of the key trends that we've picked up over the last almost 5 years of ERG being alive. There's a number of them, but if I can summarize it to three of them. So firstly, it is quality assurance and control. QAQC is the term that we use for that. That is something that what we realize is a lot of companies are leaving money on the table by neglecting QAQC. The second one is basically a subtle technical nuance where a lot of sites have moved to electronics, but ironically they're not utilizing the electronics to the full extent. And the final one is more on the let's call it the upstream and the downstream companies that are part of the mining and quarrying industry, that there's a shift in focus from previously focus was mostly on volume and profits. Now the focus is on value. So that's the three. If I break it down a bit more detail. So firstly on the QAQC, what we started noticing in the work that we do is it's one thing to have good design. This is not a challenge in the industry. There's plenty drill and blast experts in the industry. There's amazing software, left, right, and center wherever you look. Some of it expensive, some of it cheaper. But the point is, design is not a problem in drill and blast. Mostly what we see is design is good. Where the problem is there's a massive gap between design and execution. So the analogy I use is to say it's one thing to have an architect design a beautiful house for you, but if the builder can't execute and realize what's shown on paper, that's where the disconnect comes in. So we see it in drill and blast is you have a head office, or you've got a shared service or an in-house drill and blast engineer that does a great design that should produce the result you need. Then you go into the field and you start doing an audit, so to speak. I don't like using the term audit. It implies negativity, but for lack of a better term, that's what it is. You start doing an audit to see how well does the execution comply to what has been designed on paper. And the results are mostly shocking, where it's not uncommon for us to see, once we go through this process with many of our customers, that compliance to design on things like drill depths, things like charging length, stemming height, a good number is maybe 30-40% compliance, which obviously is not a good number. So what we realize, and that comes to the statement I made, is a lot of companies are leaving a lot of money on the table by simply neglecting this aspect of QAQC. And it is, in our view, one of the quickest wins that any site that does blasting can get, because it doesn't cost you any money. It's not that you're adding another product. It's not that you're adding anything else into the mix. You are simply doing diligence on your process and executing what's been designed. And the results are phenomenal. We've got case studies that we've done this work where we start by blast 1, QAQC is bad. By blast 3, we've got QAQC from 20% compliance up to 85%, and taking sites from having packers out there 24/7 working with our oversize to having no packers, no oversize to speak of. So that's the one observation that we've seen is our view always, and we say it loud and proud, is if you want to add value to your business, you're a mine or a quarry, focus on QAQC. And then look at optimizing after that. The second one on the comment I made about the electronics is we see over the years, a lot of sites have adopted the electronics. Obviously, it comes at a fairly significantly higher cost than your standard shock tube timing. But the irony is the biggest value of electronics is it gives you flexibility and creativity on your timing. You know, shock tube, you're limited by the timing categories that you have, like 1125 or 2542, the different notches that you have. And we found that at least 50% of the sites we work with that have taken the plunge to electronics, which we support, they still stick to a shock tube timing. So you are not utilizing any of the value that you get from electronics. So that also is a quick win.
Yeah.
We feel that from a knowledge perspective, it's something that most people are used to, shock tube timing. They know how to work with it, know how to do the timing design. So that's another quick one. We see an observation that, again, money is being left on the table. The product is being bought and not fully utilized. One that I forgot to mention in the introduction, the 3 points, there's actually 4, is also the observation on there's an increased focus, a trend we're seeing on confinement of the blast. So this is a large part of our business is we focus on confining blast energy so that you have less of the energy going out the hole. Again, it's money that you're blowing up into the air. So we're seeing more and more that mining companies, quarrying firms are realizing that if you look at the basic physics of confinement, it makes sense. You're drilling a hole in the ground, you're pumping a large amount of explosives in it, and you're then setting off a blast without making sure you're keeping that energy in. So a lot of sites still stem with drill chippings or drill cuttings, which does almost little to nothing in terms of confinement. You need something that can keep the energy in. So that's another trend we're seeing is there is an increased focus in that. Again, another quick win, changing up stemming material, making sure that you're putting the right aggregate or right size material in the hole, use of stemming devices, a bunch of them out there. That's also a trend we're seeing that makes us very happy to know, because we don't like wasting money, wasting energy, and that allows it to keep it in the block. The final point that I mentioned in the introduction was the shift in perspective or behavior from a supplier side. So in the past, and it's something that really irked us for a long time, is we would see suppliers that they're not necessarily in the game of mining or quarrying to create value. It is to create profit. Now, obviously, everybody's in business ultimately to create profit, unless you're a charity, which no one in mining is. But in the past, it was about driving volumes, meeting KPIs on how much product is sold to the mine. And we've seen a shift generally that there's more, for lack of a better term, care out there for customers, where it's a tipping point that we've reached, where instead of focusing on pushing volumes, it's ensuring that the customer gets the absolute best service and the most amount of value from the products or the services that you're supplying, but you're able to retain that relationship. So that's a very positive change that we see, especially given the current state of the mining industry and the bottom of the commodity super cycle. Is a lot of suppliers, service providers to the mining industry and quarrying industry is focusing on value rather than volume, and that benefits everybody in the end. So that's basically some of the key observations, trends that we've seen over the last couple of years. And our view in summary is that everybody in the mining quarrying industry, at least from our perspective and our dealings and our experience, is moving in the right direction. Everybody's getting on the bandwagon of let's focus on value, let's focus on optimization. There's no more room to focus on self-enrichment within this industry that we work in.
Thank you, Eugene.